All right, good afternoon and welcome to John Box Watercolor. Today we're going to be painting a scene from Paris, France, but before we get started, if you wouldn't mind giving this video a thumbs up, and if you like what you see, consider subscribing. I'm going to have 3 to 4 new videos out each week. So I want to put our reference photo over here on the right so you all can take a look, and I've gone ahead and kind of rendered my sketch over here on the left. Now, I've mixed things up just a little bit, added some figures in there and kind of rearranged the cars. The most difficult part of this painting are going to be these flowers and things over here on the left. And I'm going to talk more about that as we get into the painting and how we're going to try to abstract things. But that's going to be, just going into this, that for me personally is something I don't paint a lot. So we'll see how it goes. All right, let's go ahead and get rolling here. So first thing I'm going to do is, just to keep our sky kind of light, I'm just going to grab some dirty water here and just spread it out over the top of our paper here. Just to give it a little bit of water, it'll help maintain some of that light. I'm going to keep our sky nice and cool. It's a pretty kind of bluebird day. And you know what? I need to spray this. Get those pigments released a little bit more. All right, got some Cobalt Blue I'm going to pull down from the top here, and let's just make a line. That looks pretty good. And if you've watched any of my other videos, you'll know that when it comes to skies, less is more. So I'm going to kind of work the brush through here and then let the watercolor just do its thing. I've got something here stuck on my paper. I think it's an eraser shaving or something. All right, keep working down our page here, thicken our pigment up just a little bit there. And you'll notice I'm always taking that blue and bringing it down here into that somewhat dirty pale there, and that's just to kind of neutralize that color a little bit. Even though it's a pretty strong blue day, there's always going to be somewhat of a neutralization of the color. It's never going to be just a perfect pure blue. So I want to bring it in there just for a second and just touch it up. Now, I'm going to continue to bring this down here. And I've got to be careful, because what I'm going to do for these flowers is I want to leave some nice warm colors here, some reds and some yellows, that sort of thing. But I'm going to leave these two figures here completely white. So I'm going to grab a smaller brush. I'm going to grab some cadmium red here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come through here, make a couple of spots, and then I'm just going to take some water and let that water kind of spread that color out, so there'll be some more saturated areas, some less saturated areas. And let that water do the work for me. All right. That's not too bad. And I'll take a little bit. This is Hansa yellow medium. And just dab a couple of spots in there. Right like that. And that'll be kind of the base for our abstract flowers over there. All right. Let's keep working through here. I'm going to leave the figures over on the left side lighter as well, just because, oops, I got a little red on there. That's no problem because that building is going to be painted over. My red paint has gotten a little bit dry, so it tends to flake off a little bit. All right. So these buildings in the background are going to be painted dark, and so I'm going to have these figures here light so that I can get that kind of contrast I'm looking for. So all I'm going to do is just pull down some dark paint around their torsos, right like that. Okay, I think that looks good. Now, for the ground, we're going to warm things up here. Got some burnt sienna, little yellow ochre. Let's just pull that through there. I think that looks nice. I'm just going to put some water on these cars so I can let that color kind of permeate through. Again, keeping it pretty warm here. And we're going to cool it off as we move down the page here. We'll get cooler and darker as well, just to get some nice kind of a transitional wash here. And again, I've got, it's Cobalt Ultramarine up here, and then I've got Yellow Ochre and Burnt Sienna. Those are my main colors I'm using right now. Just kind of going back and forth, just working my way through here. And I'll probably have to darken that up a little bit at the bottom. I've got some grays over here on the left. That's what I'm going to use to darken things up. All right, so I think that looks fairly good as our starting point. I'm going to dab out. I think that looks fairly good as our starting point. I'm going to dab out the tops of these cars here just briefly. Bring a little bit more light in. All right. So I'm going to let this dry and we will come back and start our second wash. All right, and just like that, we are back and ready to start our second wash. This is now completely dry, and as always, I'm going to start with objects that are further in the distance and move closer as we progress. Let's start with this building over here, and I've already got somewhat of a kind of a gray wash going here. I want to be careful with how much more water I bring onto this palette. Your second wash is going to always be fairly thick in pigment, and every time you introduce water, it makes it that much harder to get that dark kind of penetration you're looking for. So I'm going to mix up kind of a neutralized, warmer color here, and let's just put a mark out there. And you know what? I think that looks pretty good. And we're going to start moving along here. And I want to make sure I'm moving my brush quickly and confidently. And I'm not worried about every little area here. I want to leave a few holes of light. Helps create the impression of little windows or fixtures, architectural details on our building here. I'm going to give this little spray just to dampen the paper. Let's work on our top there. And again, all I'm really thinking here is I've got this really light blue sky. I just want to make sure I'm getting a decent amount of contrast here. Maybe I'll leave a little line there just to separate the body and the start of this little top here. Okay. Oh, that's pretty warm. All right, let's keep working here. I'm just kind of dabbing my brush here at the top. I want to try to get a few broken lines and things up there and let the viewer's imagination sort of fill in the gaps as to what every little thing could be here. I'm going to draw that. Just a couple of little things sticking up there. Okay, and we're moving along. I'm going to darken it up just a little bit as we work down the building here. Pull that across. And again, you'll notice when I made that mark, you've got to be confident with your brush strokes. That's one thing that's kind of hard to explain in art, but you can tell when you're looking at something where every little touch of the paper was just very slow and precise. And sometimes, depending on the impression you're going for or your style, it can sometimes be a little bit boring. So the faster you move your brush, you can give these little flares of abstraction, and they end up working out a lot of the time. You would be very surprised at what you can accomplish when you let your brush just do your work for you. Okay, pull a couple lines down, and again, those little gaps of light, they're giving me contrast. It's looking like little windows and things. I'm being confident. Now, I am going to add a little bit of water here. Warm it up just a little bit. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of pull some vertical lines and things down the side of this building, right? This is maybe a bit over here where there's some more light. And I'm just Just suggesting here. I want to make sure I get a sharp line over the top of that car's windshield back there so that we can make sure and get that impression correct. But we'll come back to that. All right, let's keep working through here. Okay. I'm going to grab a little bit of dark paint, and I'm just dabbing that brush right along the top there. That's going to bleed down and kind of give the impression of a darker shadow underneath that awning there. Maybe a couple of touches there, let that pull down. Let's give that a spray. Let's keep working along. I'm going to grab some cooler colors just to mix it up. Just to mix it up a little bit there. Maybe something like that. Let those kind of bleed down. Warm it back up for the tops of these little, I don't really know what they are, towers. Okay. And over here on the left, I don't know if I've mentioned this, my dark colors. It's just neutral tint, neutral gray, and a warm gray. And they are, as always, Daniel Smith. It is my paint of choice. All right. This is coming along very nice. I'm going to grab my smaller brush here, and I want to make sure to get in nice and tight to these figures and try to keep it as clean as possible. I certainly like to have the brush do some flare work when I'm working through buildings and large scenes, but every once in a while you need to pull it in nice and tight and controlled. I really want these figures to pop out. So the tighter I can get that dark line around their heads and shoulders, it'll help kind of silhouette things. All right, now I'm down near the bottom. I'm just going for I need some thick pigment here to get those contrasts I'm looking for. All right, grab my littler brush, kind of pull some things down. All right, that looks pretty good. Okay. I'm going to grab my paper towel, and I always want to give that illusion of depth, right? Right now, our building is almost one tone. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and just dab the back edges of this building here and just kind of work my way in to sort of help push those back. It'll really help add a little bit of depth. I'm going to grab a warmer color here, and I need to work across. And you'll see I'm going to do the same thing here in a moment and lighten up what I paint here. But I need to get something across here to help kind of silhouette these cars. And I'm going to have this figure painted dark so I can just go right through them. That's no big deal. Right like that. And I'm going to come through, just take that paper towel and dab it out a little bit. Okay. Grab my little brush here, maybe throw in a vertical line or two, keep things interesting. Yep. Just add some darker accent marks on that side over there. Very good. All right, same thing I did up top here to get that kind of dark roof line. I'm going to take and just dot my brush across like that. All right, and you know what? I'm going to brush out just the top of that just to give us a little something. And it may be too wet right now, but I would like to see if I can't come across and scratch a little highlight in here. I'm just using the back of my brush right now. Okay. All right. I think that looks pretty good. I'm okay with that building for now. I'm going to dot just a little bit more dark there. And you'll notice I'm going to dot them. I'm going to leave it be. I'm going to let that paint pull down. I'm going to give it a few minutes before I come back and try to adjust things. Watercolor is constantly moving, but sometimes it can be a bit slow. Make sure you're giving it time before you're going, I don't like the way that looks. Give it a minute, let it rest, and then you can come back. Now, I want to have some shadows over here to help kind of frame this left side of the painting even more. And I want them to be fairly dark and fairly cool. I want to get some nice contrast down here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start all the way down here on the bottom of my paper, and I'm going to work up towards that building there. Now I'm starting down here at the bottom just because I've got some pretty thick paint and I want it to be darker on the bottom of my paper, the same way we kind of tone our foreground. I want it to be the same sort of process with my shadows. I'm spraying the paper to keep it alive here, give it a little bit more moisture. Now we're going to have to go really heavy into those pigments. I need to really get dark here to get what we're going for. Yeah, that's what we're looking for. All right, and you'll notice I'm going to go ahead, and we haven't worked on our cars yet, but I'm going to go ahead and just pull out what will be some shadows later on for those. And I'm going to really work to darken this here. Yeah, something right like that. And I'm just going to let that brush kind of do a little flourish there. There could be some more buildings and things along this left side. I need to pull that up just a little bit in there. Make sure we've got a good strong connection for this car's shadow running out there. Yeah, I think that looks nice. And just to add a little bit of dynamic, or it's probably not the right way to say that, just to add some interest to my shadow here, I'm going to come in, I'm going to mix up a purpley color. And I'm just going to throw that in right there. Right like that. And now I'm going to leave it alone for a minute. And I'm going to start working on this other side here. Give this a spray. Make sure it's got moisture so that things can kind of work together while I take a step back and work over on this side of our paper. The only thing I want to change, that shadow just looked a little bit crooked. Yeah. I think that'll work. Okay, now on to what I believe is going to be the tougher portion of this painting. And that is successfully depicting and abstracting this sort of flower area over here. I'm a little bit nervous for it, but I'm up for the challenge. I'm excited. One thing I'm going to do real quick while I'm sitting here while I'm sitting here watching this painting. In this shadow, we're going to have these figures here. I want to have some kind of a reflection in this shadow for them. So I'm going to go ahead and make those marks and just let them kind of bleed out. You'll probably hardly be able to see them, but I think it can be a nice touch sometimes. And you know what? One other thing, I'm going to just frame the edge of that a little bit better. Make sure I've got a good solid frame on them. All right. A couple of dots there. Just want to make sure that while this is drying, right, I'm always using my dark colors to silhouette and pull out my light colors, right? I need to have something dark against this windshield to get that sort of, you know, contrast and makes the shape stand out a little bit more. All right, let's go ahead and give this a shot. Just pulling that in a little bit there. I think that makes the shadow a little more interesting. Okay, all right, here we go. First things first, I'm going to start with the darkest area, which when I looked at that photograph was this left area here. And again, do not be afraid to go dark. We're looking for contrast. Now, it's a little bit dark through here. I'm just making some dark areas. Now, the key to abstracting shapes. I've got this large flower scene here, and I will tell you what I don't want to do. I don't want to have to come in here and paint all these little flowers. I am not that good of an artist, and one of the reasons I like watercolor is because it's typically a fast-moving medium. You know, oil and acrylics you can work on for literally months. I don't have that much patience. So what you need to do is say to yourself, where are the light areas, where are the dark areas? In whatever you're painting, it could be a flower scene, a building, a car, it doesn't matter. Where are the light areas, where are the dark areas? And then you need to pick out one or two shapes that define what you're painting. And really, when you look at this flower scene in the reference, and I'll put it up here just briefly for a moment, you'll notice that there are some flowers sticking up into the sky, a few plants. And that's what's going to be our defining shape to let our viewers know, hey, this is supposed to be, these are supposed to be flowers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my little brush here and I'm going to start pulling some more vertical lines, right? These could be stems, could be all sorts of kind of foliage related things, all right? And I've got to make sure, I'm going to grab some water here, just pull that along the bottom just to soften it up a little bit. I've got to make sure I'm going to leave room or not cut out every piece of light that I have in here. I'm grabbing just some pure red just to make sure that I'm getting that effect through there. Okay. Something like that. And now what I'm going to try to do is, and you know what, I may have gotten a little bit too dark in there. I'm just going to lighten up an area just a little bit. Now what I'm going to try to do is paint just a couple of more correct and realistic looking flowers here. So I'm going to pull up with my brush here and make a couple little areas of what will become some flowers sticking out of this. I don't know if in this photo these are wildflowers or just a nice looking little boutique area or something. I'm not really sure, but they're very nice looking. This is some Viridian green here, and I'm going to get that fairly thick. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to pull down just a couple here. And again, I'm not, you know, a flower artist per se, so I'm just trying to get somewhat of an impression here to let people know that's what's over here. All right. That's looking okay. Not super pleased with that right now, but we're going to work on it. All right. Now what I need to do is I'm going to mix up some more of that dark kind of blue we had for our shadows. All right, because we would have some shadows and things maybe coming out of that area there. Just a few. I'll draw a couple of things there on the sidewalk or the road. I'm just abstracting. Okay. It's got somewhat of a feel of flowers here. I'm not super pleased with it, but that's okay. And I'm just using some more dark paint to kind of help silhouette those figures. Okay, let's keep working here. I'm going to come back and I'll play with that a little bit. I think I want to get a little bit more dramatic with those reds in there. It looks a little bit, I don't know. I just think it needs a little something. It's okay. I think that dark could be brought up higher, maybe to kind of help frame this person here. Okay. I'm just dabbing the brush, just kind of working through here. This is a very tough scene here. All right. Okay. For now, I'm okay with that. Let's give this another spray. Let's keep working. Let's work on our cars. Now, I've got such a strong red presence over there on the right. I'm going to mimic that over here on the left. I'm going to go for a very red car. And if you've watched my other videos, we're going to start with some pure color, and then we're going to immediately come through and start to darken this thing up. I'm pulling pure neutral tint, pure neutral gray right out of the pan to get that transition from color down to dark here. All right, then I'm going to come in, I'm going to pull those tires down, maybe bring that over a little bit lower. Okay, that's not too bad. Not too bad at all. Let's give another spray. Just keeping water on the paper, keeping everything alive. I will tell you, I am not super pleased with this area over here at the moment. I've got to be careful because it's not... I just want to break up some of these shadows a little bit. I was just kind of looking out of the corner of my eye. I don't think that it's not too bad. I just, I got to be careful. I don't want to try to overwork it and save it too much and have up with something that looks worse. So I got to keep an eye on that. All right. Next car we're going to do, we'll do yellow. I always like to do a yellow car. Always looks like a taxi or something. Again, just going straight into that paint there. It's got to be very thick and very dark. Most important thing on a car is going to be this shadow here underneath it. All right. Stick our grill there. Okay. That is looking not too bad. I'm going to add a little line here on the top just to help. There we go. That looks nice. Very, very nice. All right. Now, what to do here? I'm going to take some pure water, and I'm just kind of playing a little bit here. I'm going to let that water run into that shadow. I want to try to maybe bring this down a little bit. Just let that run. I think that may have a better, more connected feel to it. Okay. All right, let's work on some figures. Let's work on these folks first. Now, I've left them pure white so that we could have them nicely contrasted on the background there. I'm just adding in some clean water. I'm going to grab a little burnt sienna. That is a bit too watery there. Let me dry that up. Okay. Let's grab some neutral tint here for the bottom. And we're going to work on those legs. And what's nice is they're already kind of in shadow, so I don't have to do a whole lot for the lower portion here. This other person, we're going to keep them light as well, but we're going to do it with a little bit of blue. I'm just going to make a mark there. That is some cerulean. Then take some clean water and just spread it out. Just want to keep this very nice kind of light blue shirt here. Grab a little bit more paint. Again, I want to be really careful not to get it too dark. The whole reason, you know, that we left these folks unpainted in the beginning was so that we could leverage that and get a bit more contrast. Grab some of that burnt sienna there. Pull that down. Very nice. Let's grab some neutral tint for the bottom. And we're just pulling that over and down there. And that's not too bad. Give another spray, keeping things alive. I want to darken up this face a little bit here. Yeah, that's better. That is better. All right. I'm going to pick up some more dark paint here. And I want to see if I can get this kind of reflection thing I had going to show up a little bit better there. And that should soften and lighten as well. All right, let's work on our other figures here. We've got this individual in the background, which should not be difficult. I'm just going to kind of flourish the brush a little bit, get a dark shape out there, put a nice warm top, nice kind of darker bottom there. Okay, let's work on these folks. Now, I'm thinking that I'm going to want this figure lighter because he's kind of surrounded by darkness, but this can be a fairly dark figure. Let's do, I'll tell you what, we're going to grab some of this white here, and I'm going to turn this into a suit here. It didn't really turn out as white. I kind of had a dirty brush. That's okay. Grab some of that burnt sienna. I'm going to pull that down. I'm going to come in for that neutral tint here, and we're going to build a jacket for this individual. Now, I want to have the left side of my jacket be thicker than the right because I want it to look like he's kind of facing this individual in this on the side of this little flower area here. Okay. Something like that. Just pulling that down a little bit. Add a little bit of dark hair on him. Perfect. Perfect, perfect, perfect. I may need to just lightening that up just a touch over there. Okay, that's looking good. Let's give this another spray. Let's work on this gentleman. I'm going to leave him white, except I want to give him maybe some type of a, like an apron type thing. Some overalls. Okay. I'm going to do it right like this. I'm just grabbing lavender here. That's what this color is you're seeing me pull out. Okay. Let's grab a bit more of that dark paint there. Just pulling that down just briefly in there. Let's grab, oops, a little bit more of that lavender, see if we can't get it to kind of run. Get a little bit more of that misty effect down towards the lower half there. Yep. Right like that. Let's get a little red. Let's give that gentleman a tie there. Just going to put a little bit more solid paint around that figure back there. Okay, it's starting to come together. Not obviously super pleased with the flowers I did over here, but I think everything else looks pretty good. What next? What next? I've got the back of this. I'm going to just pull down a couple of areas in here. Again, just trying to give the idea that, again, this is supposed to be flowers. All right. Yeah. Okay. Squinting my eyes, looking a little bit. What do I see? What do I like? What do I not like? For now, I think we're okay. I'm going to let this dry, and we're going to come back, add our final details, and we will be done. All right, we are back, and we are here to finish this painting up. I'm going to attempt here. I'm going to add a few more flower-like things just to try to indicate that this is these are flowers. This is not a burning building or something over here. Let's do, yeah. I think that's as good as it's going to be. Definitely not my strength, but that's okay. I'm going to add a little bit more lavender to this kind of overcoat here. It's kind of shopkeeper's apron. Maybe kind of smear it just to have it bleed just a little bit there. Okay. And you know what? I may give this gentleman some sort of a... I'm going to try to give the impression here of a basket or a vase or something with those flowers in it. Perhaps. Maybe a bit more red on top just so you can kind of... Yeah. It looks like he's carrying something. I don't know if that was the right color or not, but that's okay. All right, let's grab a little bit more dark paint just to darken this jacket up a little bit. Again, making sure I'm getting that contrast from everything else behind this gentleman. Okay. Just pulling down some darker legs there. That looks good. These guys, these legs over here are plenty dark, I think. All right, I'm going to add maybe just a couple of those kind of architectural lines there. I don't want to overdo it. I thought that building just needed a little something. Okay. I'm going to add another vertical kind of line here. Yep. Not too bad, not too bad. I am tempted here. I'm gonna give this guy a jacket as well, I think. Again, may not be the right choice, but I think that, man, my paint has gotten so dry. I think that having maybe those two figures right there, both of them being light, I don't know. I just think it could be sharpened up a little bit here. We'll see. I may regret it instantly, but no, I think that's just fine. A little bit of hair. Okay, maybe that guy's bald back there. A little bit of hair there. Okay, let's add some gouache here. Oh, you know what? One more thing before I do that. Let's add some kind of perspective lines here. Just something like that, maybe. You know what? I don't like that very much. Use my finger and soften that up. That right one could be a sidewalk or something, but I don't want to have them all the way across the road. All right, let's get our gouache out. This is just some white titanium gouache. You can get it at Blix. Grab a little bit. I'm going to stick some on here for the headlights of these cars. Make them pop out a little bit. And you'll notice I'm not doing them perfect. I want them to be a little bit, I guess, non-symmetrical, just to make it a little bit more interesting here. I'm going to definitely add a few things here. Maybe a line to indicate there's a barrier there, maybe a shop or something, a little trolley. And these folks definitely need some highlights on them just to help get them out of the dark. Yep, that looks pretty good. Maybe a vertical line there. Just a few little, just adding some little dots and things. Just, again, little itty bitty highlights, you know? All right, that looks pretty good. The only thing I'm wondering about is I kind of feel like I'm missing something down here. I'm tempted. I've got a flat brush, and I'm tempted to just, we're going to go for it. I'm going to glaze over the bottom of this shadow and just darken it up just a touch down there. just to give it a little bit more body, just to show that, hey, this is closer. Grab some lavender there. I'm just brushing over it. I'm just going to just keep it down there. All right, I think that helped. If I could, I would lighten that back there. I need it to be more of a transition in the shadow. Let's go ahead and sign our paper here. Okay, let's take the tape off and let's look at what we've done and see what could we have done better and what did we do well. Always the most fun part, taking the tape off. Oh, we're going to fix that. I'm actually glad that showed up on camera so we can talk about that. Sometimes when you're doing thick washes, you'll have your paint bleed through and leave little blemishes like that. I'm going to show you how we can fix that. All right, fairly simple to do, and you may already know this. You need to make sure you have your paper towel nearby. And all we're going to do is I've got this brush here. I'm going to get it nice and wet. Try to make sure there's no paint in it. You can just use dirty water, but that's fine. I'm going to shake it off a little bit. All I'm going to do is rub this area. I'm going to take my paper towel and just give it a good press. And you should be able to lift most of that. You can see this has still got a little bit of that little kind of darkened area there, but it was much better than it was. And just rub that water back and forth. I'll give it one more try down here. Let's see how that does. Just keep it just to the white there. Give it a good firm press. You don't want to wipe it. You just want to press it. All right. It's better. Much, much better. Okay, so what did we do well? What did we not do so well? If you can tell, I'm not super pleased with my flower abstraction over here. That's not something I do very often. So I definitely think that could have been done better. I will probably in my own time try the right side of this painting again just to see if I can get a better impression. This shadow it's just one tone, and I needed to have a bit more interest in here. It's shadows in buildings, they're just dark shapes. They should be treated fairly similar. You'll notice in my building here, I've got darker areas, lighter areas. Shadows should be the same way. I wish I would have had this much lighter up here and then slowly darkened, and then I should have taken some paint there and run it through the shadow to get some darker kind of reflections of those two figures. But again, it's not too bad. What do we do well? I like our building. I like these very soft windows we have back there. Oh, you know what? There's one other thing I wanted to do. I forgot about this. I made a little fingerprint earlier. It's been bothering me. Just take a little water, just dab it out. That should be fine. Yeah, I think our cars look pretty good. All in all, not too bad of a painting. If you stuck with me all the way to the end, I really appreciate it. And I hope that you will consider subscribing. Just had to darken that shadow a little bit. And all of these are going to be for sale in my store as well if you feel inclined and you really liked it. So anyways, thanks again for the support, and remember to keep on painting.